Welcome everyone to night two of our Expresión Storytelling Showcase. I'm Ivan Ramirez. I'm Interim Executive Director here at the Latinx Education Collaborative. And our mission is to build the conditions for the advancement of Latinx youth. So one of those initiatives that we have is by developing the leadership and storytelling abilities of our educators across the nation through the Expresión Storytelling Fellowship. For educators to harness the power of storytelling, and hopefully by the stories that you're about to hear today, we start to create empathy. We know that when educators are seen, they are more likely to stay in the profession. And if they stay in the profession, then students will see themselves reflected in those educators in the different schools. So I also, before we get going, want to thank our partners of Storytellers for Change, Luis Ortega, who has been with us since day one, since cohort number one. This is the brain. This initiative came from him. So we are so thankful that we continue doing this, and now we are in our 5th year. So before we get going, I just would like to go ahead and do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land on which this work started as the traditional home of the Coast Salish people, the traditional home of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations, as well as the Missouri, Oto, Kansa, Osage, Shawnee, and Sioux in Delaware. We pay all respect to all indigenous people and take this opportunity to thank the original stewards and storytellers of this land who are still here with us. So with that, hopefully you get comfortable, grab a cup of water, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy the stories that you are about to hear. I'd like to introduce Luis so we can get going. Welcome, Luis, and I'll be backstage. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Gracias. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Thank you for joining us for our second night of our Expresión Storytelling 5th cohort showcase. I also want to extend a thank you to Ivan, to the entire LEC, the Latinx Education Collaborative team, for their ongoing partnership in building and developing this program. I'm Luis Ortega. My pronouns are he and they. I'm the founder and director at Storytellers for Change. And I also want to offer my thanks to each one of our fellows that are going to be presenting today. We're going to be hearing from 5 incredible storytellers, educators, change makers, and I cannot wait to tell you more about each one of them. But most importantly, I cannot wait for you to listen to their stories. I also want to offer a brief but very heartfelt extension of gratitude to our previous cohort members, all of our alumni who have over the years helped us to develop and strengthen this program. Last but not least, I also want to acknowledge and thank our facilitators who made this 5th cohort possible, and that includes Ivan Ramirez, who you just met a moment ago, dear friend, incredible community leader, and also Dr. Marta Silva, who participated in our 2nd cohort and also returned to the fellowship as a facilitator. Our mission with this fellowship is fundamentally rooted in the belief that we move in the direction of the stories we tell. So as we co-founded this fellowship program, we did so with a profound belief that Latina educators in our schools, in our communities, Latina educators in our classrooms, in our lives, have precious stories that can help us to create the conditions that will bring justice and equity and inclusion and healing to our schools and beyond. As we journey alongside our 5th cohort of educators who came from Missouri, Kansas, Illinois, California, New York, Washington State, and Washington, D.C., We are deeply committed to amplifying their leadership and the precious stories that they carry. These are stories of familia and esperanza, stories of grief and love, stories of posibilidad y responsabilidad, stories of teaching and learning, stories of immigration and home, stories of our past, of our present, of our future. So with that, I invite you to listen deeply, to listen with your heart, and I will now introduce our first storyteller for this evening, Tatiana Briceño Padrón. Originally from Venezuela, is a high school math teacher at Shawnee Mission Northwest. She's passionate about helping Latino students access higher education opportunities and build strong community connections. In addition to teaching, Tatiana serves on the KCB's Fest Committee, sponsors the Latinx Student Union, and organizes college nights for Spanish-speaking families. She's also an aspiring administrator, and she's currently pursuing a master's degree. Tatiana believes storytelling has the power to bring communities together, challenge injustice, and create more authentic and equitable learning spaces. Tatiana, welcome.
Thank you, Luis. La Niña Fresa goes to college. Más que labels, from go do nails to breaking barriers. Picture this: a 15-year-old Venezuelan girl walking through the halls of her private Catholic school, laughing with her friends who have known her forever. Her afternoons are filled with gymnastics practice. Weekend evenings mean trips to the mall, sleepovers, or family gatherings, where the biggest worry is what to wear to impress the boy she likes. Her world feels steady, predictable, and safe. Now imagine this. After one summer vacation, that entire world shifts. What began as a simple, exciting 2-week trip for a gymnastics camp turns into her new reality with her mom when her mom tells her that they're staying in Kansas City for good. A casual, goodbye, daddy, see you in 3 weeks, suddenly becomes a life changing phone call. Papi, me voy a quedar en Kansas City a vivir. Now, with the new life, she had to manage how to speak English, manage an entire school system, and make new friends. That girl was sad, overwhelmed, uncertain of how her new life and future would look like. Her reality was also filled with new labels that she never thought would have: Latina o Hispana, Niña Fresa, Princesa, Minority, and even Mexican. Labels began to appear everywhere. Words like fresa or cifrina, once playful and familiar, started to feel like boxes she was being placed into. She wasn't just learning a new language or culture. She was learning how others saw her and the discovery of a new identity she had to adapt, to fit in, and get around. Labels also challenged her in many other ways. While talking with her counselor halfway through her senior year in high school, her mom and her wanted to know the path to go to college. Again, new territory for both of them. However, the conversation was cut short after the words, statistically speaking, Hispanics don't go to college. Have you thought about going to the workforce or community college for nails? Labels. Hispanic? Statistics? Her mom demanded an appointment with her principal, and she quickly was placed in the classes needed to succeed in a 4-year university. But since they didn't have the support from the school, figuring out the pathway, figuring out the pathway for college, they figured it out themselves. That meant library visits to read ACT books and practice tests, lots of online research, and praying we fill out the application for the FAFSA correctly. She made it though. She got into 3 universities, little scholarships, and a lot of enthusiasm for what's ahead. She made it to college. How exciting! New friends, new adventures, and a chance to be herself again and don't let her Cifrina label get the best of her. She learns about a Latino club during the activities carnival. Excited during the first meeting, she starts noticing again once again the difference. The way she dressed was too much. People around her immediately asked, ¿De qué parte de México eres? Pareces de ciudad, no de rancho. Even the world she thought would be safe became again a label. Now picture this. I am 27 years old, a teacher, leader, a community member. My afternoons are now filled with different activities with the Latino student group I sponsor, meeting with other leadership groups I'm involved with, weekly dinners with my parents, and my world feels once again steady, predictable, and safe, choosing to navigate this many different challenges and discovering that labels have been a part of my life. I have understood the power I now hold, adaptability to many circumstances, and being able to moldearme a diferentes grupos, personas, y culturas. Now I'm able to be myself, even if others don't understand my culture, or if they have an issue with my fresa self. I now choose to transform labels instead of seeing labels as restrictions or reprimir quién soy para que otros me entiendan. I began to see them as tools and ways to understand different perspectives and navigate different spaces. I learned how to adapt, to speak differently in different rooms, porque tuve que aprender a entender el dialecto mexicano, centroamericano, and any other dialects to connect with different people, to move between cultures without losing myself. I became flexible, observant, and resilient. But the most important part of that choice was this: I refused to let adaptation mean losing myself and my identity. I held tightly to my values, my language, my culture, my sense of self. I wasn't becoming someone new, I was becoming more of who I already was, solo en un mundo más grande. Now I see these experiences not as something that took away from me, but something that allowed me to claim my power. I understand what it feels like to be labeled, to feel out of place, to question where you belong even in a space you thought of safe, solo por el hecho de que las personas hablen español. And because of that, I can show other people around me, especially my students, that those labels don't limit them. Nadie te puede quitar el poder de ser quien eres, de dónde vienes, y nadie te puede cerrar las puertas simplemente porque te dicen que no puedes ser latino, por tener un label. Pero instead, we can shape them, straighten them, and even empower them. Today, I use my story to remind others that being different is not a weakness, but a strength and an asset. Thank you.
Bravo, Tatiana. Just wanting to celebrate you. Thank you so much for sharing your story about fresas, those labels, what it means to transform them. There's so much that resonates so deeply about your story, but there's a couple phrases there that just really connect for me at this moment. And I'm wondering if I could ask you some questions about that.
Of course.
I think towards the end of your story, you have this beautiful line that says something along the lines of adaptation doesn't have to mean losing ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and that you are becoming more of you in a bigger world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, thinking about those phrases, what has this process of participating in this fellowship taught you? Like, what lesson are you taking from this experience?
Um, it was just a very beautiful reminder of the person I am becoming. As we talked about in many coaching sessions, I was placed, maybe because I'm a mathematician, in this. Okay, I need to follow the rules. I need to follow the things. It's just this, and that. So throughout this process, it was very nice to know that even with life, it's not a straight line. It looks more like a curve, maybe a circle. And so through this process, I learned that your life has many different meanings, and it is up to you to take that power and transform it however you want it to be. So that's why I also agree that adaptation is just doesn't mean that I'm gonna lose myself. It means that I'm gonna take my identity and just take it. And if you wanna hold on to that, then great. If you don't, well, the door's open. Another person will take it. So yeah, I learned a lot about myself and the power I hold. So.
Well, you do hold a lot of power. I do remember those conversations that we had early on about pensamiento cuadriculado, I believe you called it.
Yes. See.
And it's so powerful to see how you are now holding on to that, I'm sure, but also thinking in circles, thinking in these different shapes that can help us make meaning of our lives. And I just so appreciate that you point us back to our power to transform.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you so much. I think I'm also just going to add something else briefly, which is that I'm just so excited that you're on track to pursue an administrative role. The younger version of me, the young Luis, wishes that I could have been in a school that would have been led by somebody like you. And I'm so excited for the impact that you're going to make in that you've already had, but that you're going to continue to make as a leader in our schools. So for that,
Thank
Tatiana,
you.
thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this community. And
Yes,
I
thank you
just,
for having me.
yeah, it's
This
been a
has
pleasure.
been great, and I hope that if any student out there or any teacher out there is listening to this, please let the students to hold their power and just help them spread their wings and not cut them, and be careful with words, because
Yeah,
that's what almost happened to me. Just let
yeah,
a counselor cut me short just because of labels. So
yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. Well, another round of applause for you. And I will now be introducing our next storyteller, our Expresión Fellow, Doctora Vanessa Monterosa. She is a connector, a collaborator, an inclusive innovator with more than 15 years of experience at the intersection of education, technology, and research. Across her purpose-driven career as an investor, researcher, and practitioner, she has always found joy in creating spaces that enable others to show up vulnerably and see themselves as the innovators and co-creators they are. This is the blueprint her mentors have left her, carving out conditions for others to be seen. A proud first-generation Latina, she believes storytelling is a powerful way to reflect on lived experiences, bridge generations, and inspire others through shared lessons and insights. Doctora Vanessa, bienvenida.
Thank you so much, Luis. I love to share with others that I'm a double Taurus, a Taurus sun, so who I am, my identity, and a Taurus moon, what I need to feel safe, emotional security. So who I am and what I need is comforts, routine, patience, stability. This shows up in how I live my life day to day and how I love and care for others. I got you. I'll be there. I'll weather the storm by your side. Don't come at me with change, though. Flexibility can happen, but I might grit my teeth because my soul demands routine and my heart, material affection. And when I find it, I don't let go. But nothing is forever. So imagine someone so allergic to change experiencing the death of a loved one. The loss of the deepest bond you can imagine that spanned key moments of your life. This story is about that, about what happens when your heart craves stability and your arms stretch out for one more material embrace, and when your memory wants to capture their scent just one more time. But you have to find stability out of the unimaginable instead. For the last 5 years, I've been a caretaker. And because we loved one another so deeply, I devoted my life to his health and happiness. My routine centered around his doctor's appointments, his checkups, his diets, his pill schedule, his fluid administration. His care was my routine. I got you, I told him. I'll weather the storm by your side. I love you. And it took me a moment to comprehend the gravity of helping him navigate 2 chronic diseases. But once I understood, I was his unstoppable advocate. And for the 13 years that we spent together, the companionship was unmatched. Our souls, they knew each other. And for 5 of those 13 years, we chose courage in the face of these terrible chronic conditions. But over time, I saw the impact that it had on his body, on his mobility, on his spirit, because it was happening. He was dying. And our routines were coming to an end. And in my chest, I felt a hollowness because he was a piece of my heart existing on the outside of my body. He was my first roommate. He was the ring bearer at our wedding. He helped us pick our new home together. He kept me company during my sleepless nights of dissertation writing. He was the fuzzy shoulder I cried on when my abuelita passed away. And in between these milestones were all these moments that made our souls bond. His eyes were the first that meet mine in the morning and at night every day for 13 years. His paw would always reach out for my hand. His wet nose would nudge me for a boop. His drawer of cute outfits rivaled mine. His smile would brighten our family gatherings. His tricks would bring everyone joy. His birthdays were always celebrated. He was my nervous system regulator. He was my safe space. He was my baby. My husband and I don't have children, but he helped me become the mother that I was always meant to be. And then he was gone. Nux was gone. He died in my arms in our living room on a Monday evening in December, surrounded by my husband and his little puppy brother, Tumbleweed. And as he transitioned, I felt this whoosh come over my body. And I'd felt this feeling before, the day that my abuelita passed. And I knew that he was no longer with us. I didn't sleep that first night. How could I? His eyes were no longer there to meet mine. I was disoriented. Nothing was the same. Time was standing still, but also moving too fast. So I take a leave from work. And it's the next day now. And the sun is up again, but I'm different. And we all know now how much I hate change. Zooming out and imagining all the time ahead without him is too much. So I zoom in, day by day, moment by moment. It's now the next moment. I get up and go to the kitchen to get some water, but I don't hear the tip-taps of his paws. Our home is quiet. And I'm trying to practice this new routine, gratitude. How lucky am I that my memories are as simple and meaningful as pitter-patter of paws? How beautiful to find some meaning in the mundane as him following me around the house. And in my mind's eye, I still see him, peering from the side of the bed, sitting on the couch, trotting down the hallway. It's now day 14, and our dining room is full of flower arrangements, cards, and gifts, and I'm practicing gratitude for those that loved him like I did, and for those who are honoring our grief as grieving caretakers, my grief as a grieving mother. But that day, day 14, it's a hard day. He came back as ashes in a cedar box, a vial of fur, and an imprint in clay. And I still cannot comprehend that he's gone. It's now day 40. And that night, alone in my grief, I cried out to him for the first time. I asked him if he was still with me, if he could hear me. And quietly, almost embarrassed, I asked him to come visit me as a hummingbird. It's now day 42. And my sister texts me late at night to check on me. We all miss Nux. And as we're closing on our brief chat, she says, "Before I go, a hummingbird stopped and stared at me in the window this morning. And I had this overwhelming feeling to remember to tell you." Moment by moment, day by day, week by week, I had transmuted my grief into gentleness. My gratitude had become my routine. And despite never exchanging words, Nux and I were deeply attuned through presence, breath, and energy. He knew exactly what I was feeling and could anticipate what I needed next. And in his absence, I realized I was being invited to know myself just as intimately as he knew me. And through his transition, I was moved to reimagine what it means to honor our bonds across realms. So when I cried out to him alone and in secret, and he communicated to me through my sister, through his auntie, I knew that he was still with us. I knew that he was still with me. And see, this story was always in the stars for me to tell. If you know anything about astrology, both of my Taurus placements are in the 8th house, which has to do with transformation, regeneration, and death. And losing Nux was this cosmic blueprint of my life on full display and in motion. That what would carry me through the chaos was my groundedness, my patience, my willingness to honor my grief as deeply as I loved Nux. It was about my unwavering loyalty to my soul dog when society at large might diminish the grief that comes with pet loss. I know that we celebrate the joy that pets bring into our lives, but rarely fully acknowledge the heartache that follows when they leave. So, this story is for you, my fellow pet parents, especially those who've had the blessing of meeting your soul pet in this lifetime. For those where mothering came in the form of teaching, loving, and nurturing animals, and especially for those who grieved quietly or alone, wondering if anyone would understand this kind of pain. I hope you know that I see you, and I do. Thank you.
Doctora Vanessa, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with us, for inviting us into your soul, into your grief, into your love, for invoking the hummingbirds. And I'm wondering if I could ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
My question is related to the importance of spaces where stories like this one can emerge. And I'm wondering what this space has meant for you, and if perhaps you could offer what lesson you're taking away from having been able to have this space to arrive to this story that was always in the stars for you to tell.
Thank you so much for that question and this opportunity to reflect. I had started this journey with you in the cohort, thinking about several kinds of stories I had told before, and that maybe I wanted to tell a different version of my resilience, of my strength, of my capacity to love, of my commitment. And I think maybe by session 2, I was like, no, I think I want to tell a different story. One that still shows everything that I've ever shown before in talking about my purpose-driven career, talking about being a daughter of immigrants, talking about being the first. Even though the content of this story is different, it still shows all the same things I've been able to talk about before. And so having this space to explore a different thread in my life and show up vulnerably and authentically and be held in those ways came at a point that was very healing for me, but also just encouraging. And I've seen the comments here and me and sharing with others the kind of story I was about to tell and seeing it was resonating with others. And I thought, okay, maybe it is safe to tell this kind of story. So this space really allowed for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Vanessa. We've been just truly honored to be in this journey with you, to witness your storytelling work, and how you showed up in the space with and for others too has truly been a gift. So thank you for everything you've given to this community and for reminding us of why it matters to pay attention to the deeply personal when it comes to how we show up as leaders everywhere else.
Thank you so much, Luis.
Thank you so much. I will now introduce our third storyteller and Expresión fellow who's presenting today, Jennifer, Jen, or Jenny Rodriguez, as her family calls her. Jenny is a first-generation Mexican-American and lifelong learner, and a 17-year educator who grew up in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood. The eldest daughter of Mexican immigrants, her life has been beautifully shaped by her rich cultural heritage, her father's legacy as a mariachi, and a deeply ingrained sense of responsibility for her family. As she prepares to step into the next major chapter of her career and personal life, she joins us tonight to share a powerful reflection on how being the eldest has defined her past, and now her evolving perspective is redefining her true purpose. Jenny, bienvenida.
Hola. Thank you, Luis. Gracias, Luis. I'm very nervous, but hello, everyone. I'm going to start off. Mi primera etapa de expresar mi cuento es cuando era niña. Niña, making sure I didn't make any mistakes. And if I did, I rectify them and get called "Qué buena niña" from the adults, especially my mom. What they didn't notice is the anxiety and pressure I felt to not make any more mistakes. I had to make sure I didn't disappoint my parents and also be my mom's confidant when my father was going through one of his alcoholic relapses. Soy la responsable de la familia. Ser responsable es cuidar de mi hermanita, which meant not having the freedom to go anywhere because I was responsible for my sister. Y además, hay mucho peligro afuera. Hay tantos locos por ahí, like my mom would say. The burden I carried for being responsible for my family's well-being was something I thought that was normal, and my needs were not considered, or I didn't really thought I was able to have needs met. One fond memory of me, quote unquote, deciding that my childhood was done was when I decided that at 10 years old, I was too old to play with toys or too old to play at the McDonald's play place, which that was our spot on Los Domingos, because I felt like I had to step up and be more for my mom and help her. In retrospect, I denied myself my own fun in order to be there for others. Ever since I was 10, I've always felt like I was an old soul. And that is maybe because I felt the pressure to grow up too fast. Again, I was the gatekeeper, the responsible one, making sure that my family's life was stable. Adolescente. When I was a teenager, I had few friends because I couldn't invite them over. Well, I didn't feel comfortable inviting people over because of my dad. Either was drinking or me and my mom had to help him make sure he wouldn't relapse again. I don't know if it's because of our culture or the fact that he was mariachi, but I I love my culture, but I also had kind of resentment with my culture because of the home situation I was in. I felt ashamed to invite friends over because I was afraid they had seen my dad out begging for money. Because I grew up so fast, I made the choice to not hang out with people my age. I, quote unquote, rebelled by going out with my coworkers after high school, and I started dating someone 8 years older than me. The first time I realized I wanted to do things for myself was when I graduated from college and felt that I didn't need to be there for my mom or sister all the time, especially when I realized was considered of my needs and wants. For example, I had goals to leave Chicago, to go out of state for university, to study politics in Washington, D.C. But my mom said that was too much. ¿Qué iba a hacer? ¿Estoy loca? ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Qué vamos a hacer? So I didn't. And I decided to commute and decided to have a career that was stable enough to get a job in Chicago. In retrospect, my sister, when I was going to high school, my mom asked me if I could take her to a better high school by driving her or helping my sister go to an out-of-state college, even though my sister didn't want neither of those things. La niña madura, calladita y estudiosa se convirtió en una hija malcriada y contestona, as my mom would say. Adulta. I live a life that others approve of, even though I'm feeling a lack of purpose currently. I started traveling solo abroad, became a homeowner, and have been working on growing as an educator through earning additional degrees and certifications, such as my master's degree and National Board Certified. All of this gave me a push after my father passed because it also felt less of a burden after not having to be responsible for someone else. Pero, ¿qué estoy haciendo? ¿Qué quiero en realidad? I ask myself those questions because I'm tired of being considerate of others when I don't receive the same thing. I live for the day that I'm only responsible for myself. For example, I left my teaching position in the school of the community I grew up in to work at one of the best high schools downtown after being provided an opportunity. I felt like a little girl again because my former colleagues started commenting on how I could do such thing. ¿Cómo los voy a dejar? ¿Por qué voy a dejar los estudiantes de la vida? The feeling of guilt and kind of resentment made me realize that being the eldest has been an identity in and outside my home. I am who I am, and as the eldest, I have learned to be considerate and accept others of how others are, even though I don't get the same treatment. I have to watch what I say, how I joke around people, and make sure I don't offend anyone if I say something. It's tiring, and at this age, it's been an expectation for me as the eldest. I have decided that I'm going to choose myself and those who accept me for who I am. I choose how to continue traditions and customs, and I choose what to ignore compared when I was younger. I also choose to not settle and fulfill what feels myself currently. And ser la mayor y la let me go back. He vivido muchas cosas de niña que determinaron mi futuro. Ser la mayor y la responsable me hizo pasar por eventos que me hicieron crecer a la fuerza y perder esa niña que nadie le preguntaba qué quería. A lo mejor por eso se me hizo difícil esta pregunta, pero ahora estoy finalmente lista para darme la prioridad que merezco. Muchas gracias.
Jen, thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to also honor and hold space to acknowledge the nervousness that you named. And I just want to offer the affirmation that you shared beautifully and vulnerably, and every word came across here for me. And I know, as someone who's been alongside you in this process, I've witnessed the work that is taken for you to arrive to this story. So I just first and foremost want to start by saying I see you, I hear you, and just congratulations on the work that you've accomplished.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I think that going back to the eldest, I feel like I just I've been so caught up with just doing so many things for others. I think I've told you recently, my grandfather passed, so I had to be there for my mom. And my grandmother recently, from my dad's side, also got ill. So I also feel that it's so funny that there are things that I want to do, like this program, which has been amazing, but just life or being the eldest has taken a lot of my time of what I want to do for myself. And I don't know that has happened to other people as being the eldest or being like the caregiver, like the previous story that was also so relatable to me. But yeah, I realized that even when I want to do things for myself, there's other factors that always pull me back and take my time. So
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you answer the question without me asking it, which is perfect. And in terms of, what are some of the insights that are coming up for you, and I think there's just something poetic and quite powerful about your story closing with the repetition of the word "I choose," and just the claiming of that agency, right? And I think you're also just naming, right, like all the complexities that continue to be around you as you navigate this process. So I just want to once again congratulate you. I want to thank you for being part of our community. It's been such a powerful process to hold space with you and see how you arrive at this story, and I'm excited for what you are continuing to choose for yourself.
thank you so much. And I'm so grateful that being part of this cohort and I cannot appreciate it even more. And thank you so much for pushing me to continue this journey.
Well, thank you to you, Jen. Thank you so much. And I am now going to introduce our next storyteller and Expresión fellow, Selene Hernandez. Selene is an educator and musician with 12 years of experience as an orchestra director serving students in grades 6 through 12 in the Independence School District, as well as 11 years with Harmony Project KC. Throughout her time in the classroom, she has been committed to creating an inclusive and supportive learning environment where students of all backgrounds feel valued, respected, and empowered to find joy in the music-making process. She's also a Diverse String Teachers Fellow through the Foundation for the Advancement of String Education. As a first-generation college graduate, she is proud that she received her master's degree in music. She believes storytelling allows people to pass down wisdom, cultivate deeper relationships, and connect authentically through imagination and reflection. Selene, bienvenida.
Gracias, Luis. Part 1, El violín. Playing the violin is my path to libertad. Freedom that the women in my family did not get to experience before me. Freedom to be financially independent. Freedom to choose love. Freedom to pursue a career I'm passionate about. Freedom to express myself. Freedom to move and flow through the world. Freedom to experience life in new ways. My violin has been the torch that has lit my path. This journey began in 4th grade, a year after my family moved from Los Angeles to Kansas City after losing our home. Tanto sacrificio, driving long hours as a truck driver, was not enough for my dad to continue to live out el sueño americano. I remember mi mamá telling us that we would be moving to Missouri. I had no idea what that meant, but part of me was excited to live in a new place. Maybe it was that I had my dad's adventurous spirit, or maybe because my close friends had already moved anyway that year. So we packed up our things and we drove through I-70. Along the way, I remember seeing the beautiful desert in Utah, my dad's favorite. The mountains in Colorado, my favorite. The fields full of sunflowers in Kansas, while making our way to the heart of the Midwest. We went from a house to a small apartment, and I realized that we were not in Los Angeles anymore. Let's just say that third grade was quite the culture shock. As I began fourth grade, my school offered orchestra, and I was really excited to be part of this music class. I had always been drawn to music and found learning an instrument to be very enticing. Since I was the first one in my family to play a musical instrument, we had no idea what to expect. Renting a violin quickly became stressful. You need a credit card to rent a violin. I could feel my dad's disappointment after the music store employee told us those words. They have no idea that he had filed for bankruptcy a year before and didn't have one to use. We proceeded to look for other options, such as garage sales, antique stores. Unfortunately, Facebook Marketplace was the classified ads in the Kansas City Star, but nothing was reasonable or in good condition. Plus, I was too shy to communicate with my teacher that we were struggling to find options. My parents knew how important this opportunity would be for me, but we kept hitting a wall at every corner, and the deadline to have our instruments was approaching. While playing outside with one of the kids in my apartment building, I began to tell him about my dilemma. One thing led to the next, and he quickly shared with me that he had a friend in the neighborhood that had a violin they weren't using anymore, and that I should go talk to them. I never imagined that this moment would lead me to find my violin. I connected with them, and my dad and I walked up the street to his house to pay him a visit. I remember feeling butterflies, thinking about the possibility of getting a violin that day. When the kid opened the door, he was holding an old brown case with tears on the side, exposing some of the sponge that was used to build it. He handed it over to me so I could look at it. I quickly undid some of the metal latches and opened the case, noticing it had a bright green interior. When I took the violin out of the case, it smelled a little dusty, like it hadn't been played in a while, and the surface of the violin had some scratches on it. As I held it in my hand, I began to pluck the 4 strings and began to feel excitement as I heard those first sounds. My violin had probably been sitting in a corner, abandoned for a little bit, but I was ready to bring it back to life with music. When we told the kid that we were interested, they wanted to give it to us for free. Can you believe it? Free. Of course, my dad said we couldn't just take it for free, so we settled with buying my first violin for the price of $40. My violin was definitely not like the brand new instruments that my classmates had, but it was perfect for me and exactly the size I needed. With joy, I took that violin to school to attend orchestra class for the first time. Con mucha emoción, I look back at this moment with gratefulness. Estoy agradecida por mi papá, who helped me navigate this process, even if it meant figuring it out along the way or being embarrassed for not having a credit card. This was truly divine intervention at its finest. My violin became a part of my identity. Every gathering included "De la Sierra Morena, cielito lindo vienen bajando," and playing my violin. With pride, I hold my head up high as I continue to grow and flourish into the musician I am today. My violin opened up doors I could never have dreamed of. My violin has kept me grounded while also pushing me forward. As I play my violin, the notes on the page help me transcend into another level of human connection. The beauty of music is that it connects people from all parts of life, and we work together to perform masterpieces. Music is divine. Music is joy. Music is struggle. Music is hope. Music is freedom. Part 3. Amor. Amor, una palabra poderosa, una palabra que transforma. Some of my earliest memories of love came from mi mamá. As I began my journey of exploring life, one thing holds true. My mom's love has always been consistent. As a niña, I remember her lovely voice saying, "Sana, sana, colita de rana, si no sana soy, sanarás mañana," as she put her warm hand on me to heal my wound. She made me warm teas de hierbabuena to heal my stomach aches, or would do a limpia to make sure I got rid of any negative energy. She demonstrated her love by making sure we always had a warm meal every day, no matter how little we had. The smell of Christmas morning, as she prepared tamales for the family, was also her way of showing love. There were many occasions where I didn't want to hear my mom tell me stories of her life to teach me a valuable lesson. But I eventually took those lessons to heart and am learning to appreciate them more lately. She was having honest conversations and being vulnerable. Maybe this was her way of finding her own sanación. After violin recitals, concerts, graduations, and even smaller milestones, she showed me her love by saying, "Estoy muy orgullosa de ti." The power of those words have allowed me to feel confident, sometimes in spaces that I don't feel like I belong. I admire my mom's love and strength as she navigates learning what it means to be the primary caregiver to an adult son with autism and a hearing disability. Her freedom to move in the world has been made more challenging as she has to be with him all the time. As a family, we have had to navigate many challenges, trying to get him support in his adult life. Our frustrations grow as we learn that systems are not fast enough to accommodate those needs, and the waiting game is real. In the meantime, we have to continue to live life as if these challenges aren't taking an emotional toll. We're no longer able to gather as a family in the ways we used to, and holidays are a little more stressful. Through those moments, love sustains us. I love my brother, and I see the way my mom loves him, even when he has a difficult time regulating his frustrations and ends up hurting her physically. A mother's love is forgiving, strong, impactful, and inspiring. Gracias, mamá, por todos tus sacrificios. Gracias, mamá, por todos tus consejos y tu habilidad de ayudarme cuando necesitaba apoyo emocional. No hay palabras suficientes para agradecerte. As I navigate my own life as an adult, I find myself reflecting on how I can continue to support her and my family through this process. Some days are harder, some days are easier, and some days are full of guilt as I come home to a quiet space where those worries don't directly impact me. In the next few months, I will be relocating to Chicago, and it will be my first time being away from mi familia. I found the love of my life in an unexpected way, and now I will begin a new journey with him. Although we will be miles away, I want mi familia to know that I will still love and care for them. I will be there to help them, even if it means that I can't see them every weekend. Through those changes, I know that el amor that we have for each other will give us the strength to move forward into this new stage of our lives. Thank you.
Selene, bravo, and thank you so much for your music, for your story. There's so much that you've offered that it's just touching me very deeply right now. And you told us music is divine, music is joy, music is struggle, music is freedom, and that we work together to create masterpieces. And I'm wondering about, as someone that works with music, and not only that, but creates spaces where your students come together to create music. I'm wondering if you could tell us, like, what lessons are you taking from this experience around storytelling, and what, if anything, does it relate back to also how you practice creating music? What are the connections, and maybe also what might be different?
Yeah, I think down to the human level of music making, like sometimes when we're in that process of being in an orchestra together, we're just focused on that music making process. But when we have those moments of like being able to interact with one another, it's when we truly like learn how to become one. And I think it's really important to make space for students to also share some of their stories and some of their journeys, whether that's like short reflection questions along the way or checking in with students. I have found that I've learned so much about them, and showing them that I care about their journey as well helps us really come together as one, which is such an important part of being an orchestra or being musicians. So it gets us to be more human.
Yeah. And I think just to close off, I'm wondering at a more personal level, what are you taking away from this experience?
I think this whole storytelling process has been very healing. I think there was a lot of inner reflection that happened through this whole process that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't sure like in what direction it would take me, and I'm glad that it led me to where I am right now. I'm excited to continue that process, and as I navigate some other parts of my life, but I became a lot more curious about my family history and talking to my parents, and I want to continue to do that with them as well.
Well, Selene, it's been such a joy to witness your art, your power, to witness you proclaim your freedom, your journey, your process, your care for family, and I'm so excited for your future too, for this next exciting step in your journey. And I hope you know that in this community at Expresión, will always be cheering for you and celebrating with you. And just thank you so much for the gift of how you showed up in this space. It's just been such an honor to be with you in this process.
Muchas gracias, Luis, and thank you, everybody. It's been a joy.
Gracias, Selene. Muchas gracias de corazón. So I am now going to introduce our closing storyteller and Expresión fellow for today's showcase, Melinda Medina, who is a multidisciplinary educator, equity-driven leader, published author, and poet based in New York City. With more than a decade of experience, she has dedicated her career to creating inclusive learning environments, supporting educator development, and advancing cultural responsive practices. As a writer and thought leader, Melinda explores issues of educational equity, ableism, educator well-being, and the evolving role of technology in learning. Her work is grounded in a commitment to challenging inequitable systems and expanding access to meaningful human-centered education. Melinda, welcome.
Thank you, Luis. I'm really grateful to be here and share this space with everyone. So I'm Melinda Medina. I'm part of the 2026 Expresión Fellowship, and I'm very grateful to be here. I think it's imperative to show my journey map, which is something that we completed throughout the fellowship. That sort of was the grounding space for the story that I'm going to jump into. These are pivotal moments within my life, pivotal people that have truly impacted me. There's definitely more people that are missing from here, but it's important that you guys see this before I begin, because this has been my journey so far. This is my story statement, and I'm now going to jump into the story. So it's called What the Soil Kept, Yet Could Not Take. I was 19 when the room went quiet, and the world seemed like I was no longer part of it, but simply an observer. This was not the kind of quiet that brings peace, but the kind that presses against your chest until you can hear your own heartbeat louder than anything else. Things move slowly here. Just beyond the thin hospital walls, other babies were crying, announcing themselves, filling lungs for the first time, being welcomed into a world that was ready for them. And mine lay silently in my arms after 39 weeks of pregnancy, forever sleeping. Leila Ariana. I held her, memorizing her face in moments I thought I'd have a lifetime to study. Her fingers, her lips, the softness of her cheeks. She was beautiful, perfect, mine, and yet not mine to keep. It felt surreal, like my body hadn't gotten the message. My belly was still contracting from a birth that should have brought life into my arms. My breast producing milk for a baby who would never cry out for me. My body moved forward as if she were here, while my reality stood still, frozen, in a moment I could not escape. As an Afro Latina woman, I knew what it meant to push, to survive, to endure. But this changed something inside of me. This wasn't a fight I could win. I left the hospital with an empty belly and an empty baby car seat, a seat that was supposed to carry her home, a seat that sat beside me like a reminder of everything I had lost. I remember staring at it, almost expecting, in fact, hoping that somehow she would appear and that this was all a mistake, that I would hear her cry and turn to see her there. But there was nothing. I walked into my home and was greeted by silence. A crib stood ready, untouched, clothes folded neatly, waiting, a space prepared with so much love and yet no baby to fill it. Instead of placing my baby girl in a crib, I was instead looking at caskets. 1 week later, we buried her. It was small, intimate, quiet in a different way. She was so small, lying there in her white casket, dressed beautifully, as if she were simply sleeping. I leaned down, placed my lips on her forehead, and cried in a way that felt like it came from somewhere ancient, somewhere deeper than words. We made it to the burial site. Holy innocents. Even the name felt heavy. Her father placed the casket down, and we prayed and cried and prayed again. The kind of prayers that don't even form into full sentences, just breaths, broken words, and aching. Then came the moment, lowering her into the ground, 6 feet forever. Her forever place was beneath the earth instead of in my arms. I remember grabbing the soil with my own hands, soil mixing with my tears, feeling it, holding it, and then letting it fall onto her casket. That soil, it changed me. In that moment, I didn't know how, but I felt it. Excuse me. That same soil that would cover her would also become something I carried, something I would have to learn how to cultivate, something that would one day help me to grow, even if I didn't yet understand how anything could ever grow from this kind of loss. A few months later, I graduated with my associate's degree and left my part-time job because I needed to disappear, not in a way where I vanished, but in a way where I could find myself again. So I went to Puerto Rico, my ancestral homeland, the land that held my grandparents, my culture, my food, my music, my roots, and the land that ultimately held me. I was alone there, alone and healing. I read books and wrote poetry, lying on the beaches, letting the sun warm parts of me that felt permanently cold. I walked into the ocean, letting the water wrap around me, hoping it would cleanse me, heal me, carry away even a fraction of the pain. I needed to start again, to be me again. I climbed through the rainforest of El Yunque, walking until I reached the top of the mountain, trying to get as close to the sky as I could, as close to her as I could. I stood there, looking out over the vastness of something so much bigger than me, and I realized something quietly powerful. After everything, I was still here, still breathing, still experiencing, still capable of feeling something beyond grief. I rode horses. I ziplined through the air, trying to remember what freedom felt like, trying to remind my spirit that it was still allowed to expand. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in waves, like the ocean I kept returning to. Some days gentle, some days crashing, some days pulling me under, but always moving, always shifting, always reminding me that healing is not linear, it is lived. It is like soil, waiting, needing to be watered, tended to, given time before anything new can grow. While I was there, I spent time with my grandfather, a World War II veteran, one of 16 siblings, 7 of whom joined the military, the Fighting Medinas, a man who carried history in his silence. He didn't say much, but his presence spoke volumes, strength, resilience, survival. And in him, I saw myself. I come from fighters. and I would come to fight as I always had. So I did. I returned to New York. I went back to school and earned my bachelor's degree in English and psychology. I joined a teaching fellowship that helped pay for my first master's degree. At 22, I became the first in my immediate family to purchase my own home. I built something, piece by piece. I became a teacher, a role I have now carried for 13 years, pouring into others what I had once needed myself. I showed up even on the days when grief still whispered my daughter's name into the quiet parts of my mind. I now have a son, Dean Grayson, handsome, brilliant, a light. He didn't replace what was lost, but he helped heal a space that once felt permanently empty, a different kind of fullness, a different kind of love. I went on to earn my second master's degree, and this time, my son walked across that stage with me, full circle, a moment layered with everything: loss, love, resilience, and becoming. I think about that soil often, the soil I placed over my daughter's casket, the soil that broke me, the soil that changed me, the soil I learned to cultivate, because from that same soil, something beautiful occurred. I planted seeds and I grew, not in spite of what happened, but because I chose to keep going after it. And this is a poem, an extension of what I wrote. It is called What the Soil Keeps. I did not know that grief had roots that would press itself into the palms of my hands the day I let earth fall where my daughter lay. Soil, warm, unforgiving, alive, held her before I could, and still it holds her now. They say soil is just dirt until you understand what it remembers: ash, bone, rain, the footsteps of those who came before us and refused to disappear. I come from them. Afro, indigenous, Caribbean, lineage braided beneath my skin and into my hair, like seeds waiting for the right season to rise from soil. I come from women who buried pieces of themselves and still learned how to bloom. I come from men who carried courage like breath in their lungs, fighting even when fear sat heavy in their chest. Resilience, not loud, but lived. There is something sacred about motherhood that does not end when the body empties. My body still knew her, still reached for her, still prepared for a life that would never cry back. That kind of absence does something to you. It shifts, settles, because something quieter, like roots growing where no one can see. I was 19 with soil under my nails and a story I did not ask to carry. But soil does not ask if you are ready. It takes what is given, breaks it down, holds it, changes it, and then in time offers something back. I left to water what remained of me. Puerto Rican sun kissing my grief, salt water pulling the ache from my chest in slow, deliberate tides. I climbed mountains to feel closer to the sky, closer to her, somewhere between breath and breaking. I realized I was still here. Still breathing, still becoming. Becoming is not gentle. Becoming is not gentle. It is the gentle, it is the tension between what was buried and what refuses to stay buried. It is the quiet rebellion of a seed splitting itself open in darkness just to reach for light it has never seen. I am that seed. I am the bridge between what was endured and what can still be healed. Because we are not the singular moment that tried to undo us. We are the collection of hands that held us, of voices that named us, of histories that refused to let us disappear. We are the sum of our stories, not the totality. So I plant memory and language. I plant love in places I once held lost. I plant myself into futures my ancestors dreamed of but never saw. And from that same soil, the one that took her from my arms, life found me again, a son. Placed gently into my becoming. Not to replace, but to remind. He is light where there was once only ache, breath where silence once lived, a healing that grows alongside of me. And in this living, I have planted legacy, degrees earned from nights that refused to break me, a home built from hands that once held grief, roots made visible, something to leave behind that says, we were here, we endured, we became more. And from that same soil that took, I grew, not untouched, not unchanged, but rooted and rising. Thank you.
Melinda, first and foremost, I'm still processing, taking deep breaths. So I'm just holding the beauty, also the grief, the love, the power of your poetry, the sacred stewardship of what you can do with works. It's a gift that I feel so privileged to be able to witness, and thank you, Melinda, for sharing with us this part of who you are and who I'm sure you'll continue to be as you continue transforming. And I'm wondering if it's okay with you if I could ask you a question.
Absolutely.
I am wondering about what is, going back to this soil that you're naming. What is the soil that you found, if any, in the context of this fellowship that created space for this poetry, for this story to emerge?
I think that, kind of like some of the other storytellers, I think that I was very hyper focused on the things I was currently experiencing and not the things that made me who I am and how I got to this space. And I think hearing everyone else's stories brought up this story again for me. And it's been a very long time, probably around at least this point, 15 years since that moment happened. And it feels like just yesterday, but also like such a long time ago. And I think the storytelling of others and the vulnerability, the authenticity, just the safe space that we created as a community allowed me to revisit that story in a different space, in a different space in my life. I'm really grateful for the community that I have. There's a community on here that are watching me here today, on top of the community that the fellowship provides. And I don't think that I would be who I am without all of those people that are watching, that are part of this fellowship. But I'm really grateful because this fellowship allowed me to revisit that story from sort of a different lens, and to kind of break it open a bit further.
Yeah, certainly. And just lastly and briefly, I'm wondering, Melinda, if you have any advice for any other poets, storytellers, educators out there who want to and are seeking to tell their own stories, what would you say to them?
I would say go ahead and do it. Speak your truth. Every story matters. Every narrative matters. And it will resonate with someone. And someone may need it more than you may know. And don't be afraid to misstep, to misword. Everything we have to say is important. Every narrative is important. It provides something to the space. And that's also another thing I learned from this fellowship.
Thank you so much, Melinda. So once again, it's been so beautiful to be with you in this process. And thank you wholeheartedly. So thank you, everyone, for being with us today. I invite you to take a moment to tend to yourself, take a moment to breathe. I know this well. I've been facilitating storytelling projects and programs for 2 decades, and I know what can emerge when we receive stories, when we hold stories. It's a blessing, and it's also something that moves through our bodies. So I invite you to hold what you received that needs to be held, to release what is asking to be let go of, and to find space for care for yourself as you transition from the closing of this showcase. My final remarks will be brief and heartfelt, because what I experience each time with every single one of our cohorts is what I can only describe as an expansion of my humanity. Each time I come across a story, as familiar as it might be, as strange and different as it may feel, it just continuously reminds me that we belong with each other, that my humanity is intertwined with yours, that my humanity is intertwined with Tatiana, that is intertwined with Selene, that it is intertwined with Melinda, that it is intertwined with Jenny and with Vanessa, that your healing is my healing, that your grief is my grief, that your process of transformation and your freedom is interconnected with my own. And what if we were to move in the direction of honoring stories that way? The scholar and philosopher Gloria Anzaldúa tells us that to be an artist, one of our most sacred responsibilities, and in this case, when I say artists, I'm also thinking of our role as storytellers, that one of those sacred responsibilities is to bear witness. And she says, especially to bear witness to what haunts us, to el daño. And I say also to bear witness to the desaparecidos, to the systemic harm, to the loss, to the grief, to the violence, to the patterns of injustice. And I think we also need to bear witness to the love, to the care, to the sacred knowledge, to what may feel deeply mundane and yet is precisely what shapes us day to day. To create space for those stories to emerge is something that exists within our capacity. We are so privileged to create this program and have the opportunity to do this with our Expresión fellows. And I just invite you to remember that every single one of us is a storyteller and has the capacity to create that space for ourselves and for others, wherever we go. No one, absolutely no one, can take our stories from us. So I say to you, I see you, I hear you, I'm with you. Thank you to our Expresión fellows. Thank you for expanding my humanity. And remember, together, we're going to change the narrative. Thank you, everyone. Take care.